to see some familiar faces hopping in. We can give some folks a few more minutes before we get going. I feel like Fridays are always my crazy day. I don't know about any of your deadlines or stuff that you're working on, but it always feels like Fridays are like the day that everything goes out the door. So I think Dash has like 6 or 7 projects that we're
Oh,
delivering
wow.
certain aspects of them all today. And like we try to always schedule stuff so they don't align at the same time, but then clients have delays and things shift around. So now we have like 7 things going out the door today, which is like nuts. So I know our whole staff, we'll see if they actually listen today because they might be stressed out working. Are you working on anything really fun right now? Any cool projects in the works?
At the moment, yeah, I'm working with the studio. I don't know if I can say their name, but
Mm-hmm.
yeah, yeah, it's been really fun and lots of concept sketches, and I don't know if they're listening to this, but yeah, it's been really fun and nice.
It's always one of the tough things in this industry, because there's like certain NDAs, you can't share certain stuff. And it's like such a bummer because, we get so excited about the projects we work on and we might not even be able to share it for like another 6 months or something like that.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, like, like it's been a year for me, like since I started freelancing, and I had to learn about all this like NDA stuff and the
Yeah.
contract, and so I definitely feel that.
We had a client one time, Sophie, I kid you not, this is a true story. I'll tell you this true story before we get going. We had work on this project with this client, and I can't tell you the name of the client. They're super cool, everyone knows who they are. But when we were working with them, they were like, yeah, we don't want people to know that we hired this out. And I was like, why? Like, who cares? They're like, no, 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 you don't understand. Like, no one, we just like, our rep is that we do everything in house. And so no one can know that we hired this out. And I was like, well, with our projects, that's how we win most of our work is what people can see on our website. And they were like, well, what would it cost for you not to show it? And so I think we ended up saying like 30% of the project cost or something like that to like not show it, and they went for it. So they just paid us a bunch of money just to not show it,
Oh, wow.
which was nuts. I've never like had that happen before. And at the time I thought it was great. I was like, well, that's easy money. And then like later on, once we were finished with the project and it looked super cool, but then I could never share it, I was like, this sucks. It's tough. It's tough. Well, perfect. Well, we can kind of get going here. I think a few more folks are trickling in, but we can give some brief introductions. So my name is Matt Garrison. I'm one of the co-founders and executive producers of Dash, a high-end animation and motion design studio located right here in Raleigh, North Carolina. And today I'm joined by the talented Sofie Lee, animator, designer, illustrator, working in the motion design industry right out of Korea. Welcome to the program, Sofie. Glad to have you here.
Yay, thank you so much for having me.
Now, for folks who don't know, Sophie is currently in Korea right now and is treating us all to a 2 a.m. conversation. So we're so thankful that you would be willing to hop on. And it's great to chat with folks around the world. I think it's one of the coolest things about this program and this platform with Clubhouse and just our industry in general is that while our industry feels like so big on the onset, you actually realize how small it is. And even with our world community, we're able to like stay in touch, which I think is really neat.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, maybe a good place to start, Sophie, is just for those who don't know you, tell us a little bit about yourself. How did you get into the motion design industry?
So I first studied graphic design in LA, but I mean, like before I started study graphic design, I knew I wanted to pursue my career in creative field, but I didn't really know what I wanted to.
Mm-hmm.
So like, but then I was like really interested in like street brand, and maybe I wanna like, like working for advertisement
Mm-hmm.
or like for campaign. So I studied graphic design, but then like the folks that I met at the college was like really, really great. So they really inspired me. So I decided to transfer to SCAD, Savannah College of Art and Design.
Mm-hmm.
And I was gonna keep pursuing graphic design, but then like I saw during like the student showcase that it was like kind of like graphic design, but they were like moving in a really crazy, awesome way.
Mm.
And so I was like, oh my God, what is that? So I found out
Right.
about like motion media design. And then I was like, I was in my last quarter of junior year, so it wasn't like the best time to switch my major.
Probably not.
Yeah, but like I was like, oh my God, but I really want to learn about this, so I switched my major. And then during my senior year, I got an opportunity to intern at a studio called Oddfellows,
Mm.
and then that got luckily transitioned into the step position. And after that experience, now I'm a remote freelancer working from South Korea.
Nice. That's, it's funny how things just kind of work out. If it makes you feel better. I actually also changed my major my junior year. I remember I was really into like art and I was like, art's cool. But then I was like, what am I going to do with a career in art? And then my junior year, someone was like, well, have you heard of motion graphics or motion design? I was like, oh man, this is wild. And so I did the exact same thing. But I think when you transfer your major, you just know more what you want. So it worked out for both of us.
Yeah, I mean, like it sounds pretty simple because I said it within like 5 sentences, but there were like a lot of, like histories that I like struggled and,
Oh
I
yeah.
mean, I learned through it, but
Do you feel like there was, for me, I remember there was one video that I saw that I was like, wow, this is so cool. Like, what is that? And it was like, oh, this is motion design. It was this video called like The Girl Effect. It was like this really simple sort of motion graphic piece. But do you remember what it was when you found motion design? Was it like a video you saw or was it a friend who was doing that career? Like, what was the impetus that made you really want to switch, you think?
oh yeah, so the department, I mean, like my dorm was like really close to the department
Mm-hmm.
where it had a program for like visual effects,
Mm-hmm.
animation, and motion graphics. So because it was like so close to my dorm, I would like always like hang out there, and then that building was open for 24 hours. And
Nice.
so like yeah, so I was like hanging out there a lot and then made a lot of friends. And then I saw people like, making animation and then
Mhm.
doing motion graphics like over their shoulder. And I was like, oh my God, like that's so cool. And then like
Right.
yeah, the student showcase was held in that building as well. So that was like how I got into it.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, it's like when you're kind of surrounded by it, it's hard not to.
Yeah.
All right, so let's see. So you graduate from SCAD, and then the fine folks over at Oddfellows brought you on for a staff position. So how long were you over with Oddfellows?
I would say like a little less than 2 years.
Nice. And were you, when you were at Oddfellows, were you kind of working on a bunch of different things? Were you doing like style frames, storyboards, animation? Were you doing it all, or were you kind of focused on a couple of things?
So I think when I was at SCAD, I definitely learned both animation and design, but I didn't have much patience for like making animation. So like I
Mhm.
I knew that okay, well like I'm gonna put animation in my portfolio, but I don't want to work as an animator. So I think it was like my first day. I don't know if like Chris or Colin would remember this, but I think I said something like I'm not interested in animating. And then I think they were like, yeah, like you can just like design.
Mhm,
And so I was
mhm.
like, cool. And so I was working as a designer illustrator. So like it was like concept development at the
Mhm.
beginning and creating style frames and talk to the animators about how the design could move and
Mhm. That's really cool. And I feel like, one of the nice things about style frames and concept art is that you don't have to be so concerned about how it's going to move. You can just be like, I'm going to make something that looks amazing. And then the poor animator is like, how the hell am I going to bring this to life? So that's my favorite part. You just come up with the great ideas and then let someone else figure out how to do it. That's really great. That's really fun. Now, I'm looking. I got your portfolio site pulled up right now, and you have such a wonderful style. Like, I just love how warm and vibrant all your compositions are. It just carries a lot of energy. I don't know. How would you describe your own style for folks that maybe aren't of course they're listening to it, they can't see it. But how would you describe your style? What is the Sofie Lee style?
um, I think my style, in terms of the visual, I think it can be graphic,
Mm-hmm.
abstract. I love using vibrant colors and play with fun shapes. as well as characters. But I also really like I like to bring like certain mood of the work, not just
Mm-hmm.
like trying to make it pretty. So I like the feelings of like warm, something cozy and poetic. Yes, I think like for me, when it comes to illustrate, I would say my first priority would be catching the right mood that I want to articulate, and just like the overall vibe as a whole piece, if
Yeah.
that makes.
No, it does. I mean, because that's so important. I think that's like, I don't know, understanding the mood and kind of what you're going for and some of like the adjectives that could be used to describe a piece. You know, is it playful? Is it, bubbly? Is it aggressive? Is it intense? All that has a very different outcome for what the final design will be. And so sometimes I think as designers, it's kind of easy to get caught up in like, oh, I'm just going to make something that looks cool, looks nice. But the designers and animators that are really successful, I think, are the ones who are really kind of projecting what is best for the brand, right? It may not be necessarily your style or what you want, but what's best for the brand, because ultimately we're all problem solvers as designers. So another follow-up question I would have for you, Sophie, is, when you get that new brief, like for the new project, like how do you go about figuring out what the vibe of the piece is, or that feeling, some of those things you were just describing? Like, do you just do research behind the scenes? Like, how does your process kind of work like that?
Um, so I think I would try to think as that person. Let's say like if there's a girl in the script, or like someone else, I try to think I'm like that person.
Mm,
So like kind of like imagining that, okay, if I was that person and dealing with this stuff or like experiencing this, how would I feel about it? So
mm,
like I would like write down on my paper like some of the adjectives that kind of like resonate me.
mm,
And then based on that, I would like just like write down like any colors that also resonate me, like blue for something sad, or like
yeah.
pink for something. I mean, this sounds really cliche, but
No, no, it's great. It's great.
but like also sometimes if I want to go, like if I want to challenge myself, like like the certain colors conveys different, like a certain mood, if that
Yes.
makes sense,
Hmm. Hmm.
but
Hmm.
then like if I want to challenge on a couple of projects, I want to think in the opposite way, like
Mm,
okay, like blue is known for sadness or like something else,
mm,
but I want to use blue for happiness in this case.
mm,
Then how can I find the secondary colors that can help this blue color, you know
mm. That's
um
really smart.
yeah, it's just like fun little exploration, and just like when for me, like whenever I play with the colors, I try to not follow the rules, you
Hmm.
know
Yeah.
um yeah, because when I was studying graphic design, because like graphic design is like kind of like focused for business.
Hmm.
um
Hmm.
so like I learned certain rules, like okay, like you have to use 3 to 5 colors. I'm sure
Right.
you've heard about that,
Yeah.
right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
um
Yeah.
yeah. Third, like 3 to 5 colors, or like if you wanna like catch like a quick attention from the audience, you have to make it really contrast, like all that kind of stuff. And then for me, like yeah, they're just like written rules, but
Hmm.
I feel like emotions and feelings are so hard to describe.
Hmm.
So I feel like um I think that kind of exploration, I want to try this and that, something
Hmm.
that's against the rules, and yeah.
Well, no, that's really interesting because, like, so graphic design, on the onset is like a very static image. Like a lot of graphic design is like laying stuff out. You have color hierarchy, you have text hierarchy, image hierarchy, but it doesn't move. The composition is static. So then as soon as you introduce movement where things are shifting, you really have to think about how those elements play with one another, where hierarchy can really shift based on what's happening. And so in that regard, it's like, I really like the idea that you have like a foundational piece, and then you're thinking about, if it's not broken, what can I do to break it, to push it. In fact, it reminds me of, I went to Blindfest, I guess it was a couple years ago, and they had, I think it was like the art director or creative director, oh, what's his name, Josh something from Spider-Man, Into the Spider-Verse. And one of the things they talked about in the production of it, because it was such a unique style, right? Into the Spider-Verse was just such a wild looking fun piece. But he said something that always resonated with me when he was talking to his creatives. He said, if it's not broken, break it. So everyone used to say, if it's not broken, don't fix it because you'll break it. But his was like, if it's not broken, let's try to break it. Let's try to do something different. And I think that's a really good challenge for designers and animators because, it's so easy to kind of get caught up in the easy solution, right? You mentioned it, like color, like blue. Oh, this needs to be a sadder piece, so I'm going to make blue kind of sad. Or, you think about the composition and it might be very literal to what the script is describing. But I think some of the really unique pieces, and I think some of this comes through on your artwork as well that I'm looking at, it makes something way more unique when you can kind of think about it in a different way and really try to break the foundation. But that means it's also important to probably understand the foundation. Like you need to know what you're breaking to be able to do that, which is really cool.
Yeah, for sure. I think it was like Pablo Picasso. I could be wrong, but I think it's him. But one of the quote that I was really inspired is that in order to break the rule, like you really have to master it. But by no means I'm not the master of colors, but color is something that I'm very passionate about, and it's often very important element for me to tell the story. So yeah.
So that's a really good question so color, sorry, that's my dog Lucy. She gets real sassy in the afternoons. So with color, right? Because I think there's a lot of really great designers and things, but they struggle with color. It's something I struggle with sometimes. Like what would be some advice that you could recommend on like how to get better at finding color combinations and things like that?
Yeah, that's a very good question. I think as a designer, we really need to understand how our brain system works, because like I was like trying to like copy like how people like treat the design or like tackle the design, and I was like trying to follow that, but I realized that I have a different brain system, so I think like it would be really helpful to know what work style fits for me first, and then I would like probably go from there. So like knowing yourself and then like just like basically treating yourself as a tool when you're designing. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so basically so you're just suggesting kind of recognizing the style at kind of how you're operating or what you kind of default towards, and recognizing kind of maybe areas that you can break it and saying like, all right, well, my style is pretty consistent all the time here. I'm kind of using these colors this way. So let me just try something new, add a new color here and just start playing around in this style and see what can happen more or less. Okay.
Yeah. And also like another thing that I try to do whenever I have time is that I just like pick fun pictures, and then I pick the colors from like the eyedrop tool on Photoshop. And
That's
then
fun.
and then like I make like a little tiny blocks, and then okay, here's the orange, and then oh, I've never used these colors before. What if I put this next to this orange color? And then I try to write down how I felt about it. Because I think as a designer, I think we're kind of like a prism, we get the sunshine, and then the sun, like the light like goes through us, which is
Right.
like prism.
Yeah,
and then like the lights separates, and then we see different colors. So I feel like I think our vision and how we feel about certain things is very, very important, I think.
It's really interesting too, and I think you're on something as well, because when you tap into your feelings, like we all have our biases in design, so that we all have a style or something that we like to default towards, or something that feels easier and kind of pushes into that. And so it kind of goes back to like, again, where can you break it? Where can you try something new? Where can you try to tap into something different? That's really good. Yeah, color is definitely an area that I have struggled with over the years. I'm always blown away by how people can concoct and create these like really great looking palettes. So that's really cool. Okay, I have a question for you. So I know a lot of folks who listen to Mograph Lunch. We have a lot of people. I'm looking here right now. There's some studio owners in here. I see some freelancers in here, maybe even a student or two. So, we have a broad demographic. But one thing I think I'd be curious to know is, when you got out of school, you said your first job was with Oddfellows. How did you go about trying to get a job coming out of school. You know, I mean, I can give advice on that, but I also got out of school like 10 years ago. So I'm like a dinosaur at this point. So I need to know what's the new way to get hired by a studio. Like when you're graduating, you're coming out, you know, you got up with Oddfellows. You know, did you reach out to them? Were you just trying to stay connected as you were coming into your senior year? Like, how'd you go about that?
So I definitely use Instagram. So I was
Mm,
senior. I think it was like my first quarter of senior. But like I created this like vector shape driven work and then I tagged Oddfellows.
mm. Smooth, super smooth.
And then I think after a couple of weeks later they Oddfellows followed me back. And I was like, wow, this is so cool. They are following me now, you know.
Nice.
But I honestly never imagined or like thought that I would be able to get a job at Oddfellows.
Mm,
Um, and so I was just like looking, honestly, I was just like looking for big corporation company
mm.
because I was an international student. So I didn't even think about going to like cool like production studios. Like it was
Right.
for me, it was like all about how can I secure my status as an
Sure.
international, you know? So like
Sure.
theater company.
Hmm.
Um, but then I think one of my professor sent out the list of the students who were about to graduate.
Hmm.
And then I got an email from Colin and
Nice.
I was like, yeah, this is insane. And I was working and I was like, wow, like I got an email from him. And then yeah, and then like we like sent emails back and forth and then I got an internship. So I feel like my experience is like definitely privileged, but I do get like random messages from people like from different countries, you
Hmm.
know. Um so like for if I could like suggest something for them, like definitely be present on social media because
Mm.
I know that there's a lot of negative sides of like overusing
Yeah.
social media, but for me, like I'm in South Korea and I'm like talking to you right now, you know?
Right. I know. That's wild. That's so cool.
Yeah. So I feel like we need to have we need to have the power to use the social media in instead of like um giving the power to social media, if that makes sense.
No, it
Um
does. And like I
yeah.
think you're like encouraged. I love that you just tag them and it's like tag your crush. Like tag your crush. Who do you want to go work with? So you start tagging all your crushes, you know? That's pretty great.
Yeah, because like you're not losing anything. I mean, like
No.
maybe you can annoy them, but whatever.
No, that's really great. Well, it's interesting what social media has kind of done for our industry because you're right. There's unfortunately a bad side of it where you know there's like cyberbullying people experience or you know that people feel they have to always put something up there to keep improving to show that they're getting better and you're having to curate this portfolio. Like that's, you know, not great. But at the same time, I feel like it has really opened the doors for people to kind of show off who they are, what they're interested in. I know for Dash, particularly as we're looking for freelancers, a lot of times we'll look on social media too, whether it's Twitter or Instagram, you know, because you can follow people, of course, that you like and that you hold in high regard. And so as they're liking other photos and things, you get exposed to artists and designers that they like. And so it ends up becoming this kind of community. So it's kind of crazy how what was initially something that was just a way to connect with people personally has now really become like a business adventure, you know, and being able to find work that way. Do businesses and people reach out to you for work through Instagram, like direct messages and stuff, or are that people still emailing you for those?
So I have LinkedIn, and
LinkedIn, okay.
then I often get like work inquiries
Hmm.
through LinkedIn messages. I think LinkedIn is a really great social platform for
Hmm.
everyone who's like seeking for job or like you know like or trying to
Hmm.
get connected in terms of like business. I also think that Behance is like really great platform to
Yeah.
use as your portfolio. But like I think like there is a level of like intimacy in terms of like how much you can get closer and then be friendly with this person. But
Right.
I think I think Instagram is one of the best.
Yeah.
If I could share one of my story was that I was like working on a project at Oddfellows and while I was working on that project, I found this guy on Instagram, and I loved his style. So when I first like starting out my career, I was not embarrassed to reach out people because
Nice.
I'm like I can be introverted, but I think I'm mostly extroverted. So I was like so curious, you know. So I would just
Yeah.
like send random messages like, "Hey, like your work is so cool."
That's great. Just start tagging people like, hey, I love your stuff. It looks good.
Yeah, and then I found out that he was the art director of the client side, that the project
Mm,
that I was working on. But I like sent a message in a really informal way. So
yeah.
I felt embarrassed, but you know, but we like he followed me back, and then we like got to talk to each other about like styles, and then about design. So I mean, like it worked out for me.
That's great. Well, it's interesting to hear you talk about some of these platforms. Like Instagram, I think everyone knows about, is doing a pretty good job. LinkedIn is interesting. I actually feel like there is a growing community of motion designers sharing content on LinkedIn, and it makes a lot of sense. I mean, if you think about it, the companies who are hiring us are marketing directors at various companies, and they're looking at LinkedIn for their professional careers. And so if they're seeing artwork up there, I just feel like it almost gets in front of the right target audience. Like whereas Instagram, I feel like is really good to connect with like other designers and other animators. It's like LinkedIn allows you to connect with the businesses that would want to be hiring you for that stuff. And so posting more work up there, I think makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, yeah. I recommend. I think I have great experience using LinkedIn.
Mm. And you also said Behance, and I think I made a Behance portfolio and then never kept it up. But why do you feel like Behance is a really good portfolio tool?
Because I think one, like you can like you can like edit the way you want to post it.
Mm,
So like the layout, it kind of like it's kind of like a nice website
yeah,
layout.
right.
So I've been using Behance as for my portfolio.
Hmm. Well, it's interesting. I think sometimes as like designers, we get caught up in that we got to create this really unique website or make something look super sleek. But sometimes the best sites are the simplest ones, right? Where it's really organized, it kind of frames your artwork in a really nice manner. And I think Behance does that. So that's a really good point. All right, so here's another question for you, Sophie. You know, do you feel like, in your opinion, technical tools matter as much as your imagination does? Like, do you think it's better to have a technical understanding where you know how to create everything, but maybe I don't know. There's a balance and struggle, I guess, is a question, right? Because you have to, sometimes you don't always know the technical tools, but you have really imaginative thoughts, right? Or sometimes you have these great thoughts, but you don't know really how to execute them through like the tools that you have. I don't know. Do you put more importance on one or the other? Like, do you feel like your imagination has brought you further, or your understanding of your tools and the different assets that you can use has brought you further in your career?
Mm,
It's a tough
I
question.
think, yeah, it is.
Sorry.
I don't think it's I don't think it's one or the other. For
Hmm.
me, like it was, but it was rather complementing each other. Um, but I did have a struggle when I feel like I have a lot of ideas, but I didn't know how to draw well
Mm.
at school, so I couldn't execute. Like I would like tell people like, "Hey, I think this idea would be really cool," you know.
Right,
But then
right.
like they would interpret it in their own way, or like misunderstood what
Yeah.
I wanted to convey. So I feel like technical tool is like very important
Hmm.
to execute your imagination, but
Hmm.
I think it should go both together, you
Mm-hmm.
know.
No,
I
I
think
totally
both are
agree.
really important. Yeah.
Well, I think about it like, and it's almost a good reason for collaboration and why like working together is so important, because you can find someone who really has a good understanding of the tools, and then you're bringing a really good idea to the table, and so both of you are able to like create something that looks amazing that you wouldn't be able to do on your own. I know for us it's kind of that way. My business partner Corey, he's a very technical guy. He is the person who understands all the different programs, all the applications. I'm a big idea guy. I like big ideas, but I don't really know how to I don't really know how to make them happen. And so I think finding a partner or a pairing that you can like work together with is always really important. Have you done a lot of collaborative projects, like personal projects where you're working with someone else to make something, or anything you're really proud of?
Yeah, definitely my senior film dream.
Mm,
Um, it was like a year-long project I made with my friend Omid Siraj. He's crazy talented 3D animator,
mm,
and I've also like worked with my friend Joseph Pena,
mm,
JP,
mm-hmm.
um, and um, I've also like worked on like some social posts at the
Nice.
studio, and I think like personal project is something that keeps me going as an artist.
Yeah.
Like I really love working on personal projects.
How do you find the time to do it? I always feel like that's like the $1 million question. Like, when you get so busy with stuff, do you do it on the weekends or just like a little bit of your downtime? Like, how do you like get into personal projects and make sure that you actually finish them?
For me, it's such a therapeutic process
Mm,
when I like work on my personal projects. So I feel like I have to do it, like
right.
I would like this like little stress here and there stacked up inside of me. But then I feel like creating art is such a great way to like let it out.
Yeah.
And I feel really, really great once I like finish the work. So it's part of my living style also, you
Mm,
know.
mm-hmm.
Yeah.
No, that's really good. It's like, I also think sometimes too with personal projects, and you mentioned this kind of with just your living style, and you kind of have to break away to do it. It sounds like that you can just kind of do little bits here and there and not necessarily having to do all of it at one time. Like, I feel like there's this pressure sometimes that we need to handle big chunks of a project when in reality, maybe you only have 30 minutes or so, but just tinkering around and playing around with something seems really helpful.
Hmm.
The frames for this piece, I got it up on your website right now for Dream. I mean, they just look amazing. The color palette, the shapes, even the compositional designs of it are all very unique. It just has a very different feel. And I can tell with all the parallax and the 3D that a lot of time went into this. Have you ever thought about just how much time you put into this one project? Because I can tell it was definitely a lot.
Yeah, it was like a year-long project.
Wow.
I mean, the design side didn't take that long. It was
Sure.
like yeah, 2 months, but then me and my friend, we both were working full time, so
Mm.
we had to work in our evening hours. So that took us longer.
Well, with a project too that long, I feel like, we all are working on projects and you get really excited about stuff, but then sometimes you're kind of like burned out a little bit, particularly for a project that's that long, that goes for a full year. Like, how did you manage to like keep staying excited about the final product? Were you just trying to get excited about individual scenes more or less? Like, how'd you keep up the energy for the whole piece?
So the story is like coming from my journals, and it was
Mm.
like, and then I had this like I had this in my head that I must finish this project,
You're like, I gotta
because
get this
I
done.
yeah, but like more so in like because I really want to tell my story, like, and I want to be connected with people with my work.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had that in my head that I really want to finish this, and I want to be connected
Mm-hmm.
with the audiences.
Mm-hmm.
I think this is like really great way to put myself out there as an artist as well. But also like my friends were supporting me so much. Of course, like I feel really tired, and I was like, maybe I'm just gonna do like 30 seconds, and I'm just gonna make a teaser and submit it.
Yeah,
But
right.
like my friends are also like very supportive, and my family as well. Yeah.
Oh,
So.
that's great. Yeah, I think you need that support, particularly on big long projects, and why it's so important I think for collaboration and working with other people, because it's accountability. You have other people that are holding you accountable, like, no, we can do this. There's encouragement, because it's tough as designers. We do go through that ebbs and flows. You have creative block. It's hard to like think of ideas, or you're stuck, or scene's not working well. And so to have a team that can kind of lift you up, I think that's one of the things that I've really enjoyed about a studio atmosphere, and like working with a group of like 11 of us where we're all kind of around and can weigh in and give feedback. It just it makes you feel like you're not on your own. You're not alone doing it, which is great. um, all right, here's a good segue. Speaking of this project, your dream project, what would be your dream job or collaboration with someone? Is there anyone out there that you're dying to work with, or a brand that you want to work with, or another studio you want to work with?
So I was asked this question with another interview, and then I actually thought about it. But
Mm,
honestly, I'm very thankful and for anyone who like trusts and appreciates my work. Because I know like everyone has different tastes, so like it feels very personal and special for me.
mm,
So whoever believes in me and shares the same interests or visions,
right.
I would say those are my dream collaborations, and I feel like that's when the magic happens.
I totally agree. I think sometimes, because I think it's a question that everyone always asks anyone creative, who's your dream job? Who's your dream client? And I feel the same way as you do, Sophie. I think like a lot of times the best clients are the ones who just believe in your work and what you're doing. Of course you want to find clients who you generally like what they do, or what their company stands for. But, if you have a partnership with a client who really trusts you and believes in your design and is not just telling you what to do and trusts you as a professional, I think that's when the best work kind of comes about. It's when you get really into the projects you're working on. Have you? Oh yeah, no worries. I was just saying that when you have a client that believes in you, that's more important than having just a particular client with a particular brand. It's just more important that they're buying into your style and trusting you and open to letting you lead them, which I think is really good. Looking at your website, outside of your student work, is there another project on your website that you did for like a client that you're really proud of, or any freelance work that you just recently finished that you're just really happy with how it turned out?
Yeah, I think some of the work I produced last year, one of the social posts that I created with Aaron from Bullpen Studio.
Nice.
And yeah, and then my friend Kylan animated, and it was just like really, really amazing. It turned out really great. I also collaborated with my friend Matthias Luthen with on this like music video that he directed,
Oh,
Jasper
cool.
Rooms Night. And that was like very fun experience and lots of learning and challenges, but overall, like I'm super happy with it. And some of the other work that I hopefully I could share in the future. Um,
just not yet.
yeah, and also like last year I worked on this like Christian project with Ordinary Folk. That was
Mm-hmm.
like very, very special as well. Um, yeah, I think yeah, I can like list everything, but
That's a
like
lot.
I feel really grateful to be honest.
Well, a lot of great names in there, a lot of great different brands and different types of projects, which are really cool. You mentioned that the music video that you're working on was, in particular, that was kind of harder, or that you were kind of working through it. What was really challenging about the music video? You think that was just hard to work through, or a unique challenge?
So it was like at first it was like 6 minutes and a half.
Mm,
And then we
that's a
had like
lot.
a yeah, and we had like 5 weeks and a half to complete everything. And so like Matthias just like asked for my help for a couple of days,
Mhm.
but I was like, no, like I can like work a little longer. But like just like in terms of like the timeline, it was just like very tight. And then we had to come up with like smart decisions to like
Mm,
actually make it work and not make people to feel boring.
mhm,
So like for this particular project, I went crazy with colors because
mhm.
I feel like color was one of the elements that we could like hold the people and let like make them finish watching the whole
Right.
music video.
Mm.
So yeah.
Well, it's interesting, with tight deadlines. Like, I hate that word, like sacrificing, like, because you don't ever want to like sacrifice stuff. But at the end of the day, like, you just can't always do everything you'd want to do for a project. So, when you have a really tight deadline or something that's due really quickly, how do you prioritize your decisions? Like, does your process shift at all when you're working on something that's like really due quickly?
That's really good question. I feel like now that I'm freelancing, um, I'm really learning that each project brings its own challenges and
Mm-hmm.
then its own decisions. So I feel like one of the most important thing is I try to be flexible, you know. Like I
Mm-hmm.
do have my style of like working routine, but now I'm trying to like break that a little bit because like I can't stuck on like doing the concept sketches for like 2 or 3 days for a job like a week project. You know what I mean? So
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to be flexible a little bit and yeah, did I answer that question?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I think flexibility is really important when you have tight deadlines and kind of being able to move around and hop on different things. Do you think,
Yeah.
in that same vein and sort of talking about flexibility and tight deadlines and stuff, do you feel like you work like better? So now you're freelance. Let me say that again. So now you're freelance. You have more flexibility to work when you want to work versus having to be at a job from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. Do you like that better, that you can kind of work on your own time? And if so, what time do you work best? Are you like a morning person? Or are you evening person?
Um, I'm definitely a evening person, but I
Mm-hmm.
try to be a morning person.
That's tough. When
Yeah.
you're an evening person, try to be a morning person. That's really tough.
Yeah. Yeah. So like I have like reminder and then I have like alarm clocks, like alarms going on during my day.
Hmm.
So I try to like stick with the routine, but as a freelancer, sometimes it's hard, you know, because like I am not only an artist, but I also have to be a producer of myself.
Yeah.
And sometimes like random emails pop out and then I have to answer that as soon as possible, like all this like extra stuff.
Hmm.
So one thing that I'm trying to do is that, okay, like it's a little bit impossible for me to live like regular, super regular routine, like something like I wake up at 7 or like, and then like my day would be ends by 7 p.m. or
Right.
8 p.m. That's kind of impossible. So for me, it's like, okay, this month I'm gonna be working on this and that,
Hmm.
but then I'm gonna take this week off where I'm not gonna touch my computer and
Nice.
just gonna focus on my health. So like more like a chunky way of
Yeah.
making schedule, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Well, it's important. It's good because, like, I think with freelancers, unfortunately, there's this expectation that because your schedule is so flexible that you can work whenever people want, and it's easy to just find yourself taking on project after project without a break in sight. And I think you just hit it on really good point. Is like giving yourself that breather. So you work on 2 or 3 projects, give yourself a week off to kind of recuperate, and then do it again. Because if you're sitting there staring at your computer all day, it can definitely be a lot.
Yeah.
I also feel like a freelancer, you're kind of running a small business, I mean, what you're describing is very similar to what I do on a regular basis. I mean, a lot of it's like, all right, we're getting our team designing, we're getting our team animating, and we're all kind of working on stuff, and then emails come in, and it's like, oh my gosh, I got to respond to the emails, and you kind of jump around. The only difference is I have a team of people helping me do it, and you're doing it on your own. So do you like typically with your day, like, are you replying to every email as soon as it comes in? Do you kind of wait till the end of the day and then reply to all of them at one time? Like, what are some techniques that you use to basically be able to continue working, but also being able to reply to clients? I bet there are some freelancers listening that'd be curious to know that.
Yeah. I feel pretty careful to answer this question. Um, okay, but if I can be honest, um, I think I have a producer hat. You know, like
Mm-hmm.
I think that's kind of like something I learned is that it's like it comes as a natural for me. You know, like I'm very organized and I like to get things done when it comes to
Right.
communication. So I tried like because I got advice that yeah, so if you just like in your morning, just like use your creative power. So just like work on your
Mm-hmm.
stuff. And then
Mm-hmm.
in your evening, write, like answer the emails. But for me it didn't work because I was like thinking about the emails like the whole day. So
Right.
now I like the first thing I'm like doing when I start working is like checking all the emails,
Yeah.
and if there is something that I really need to respond immediately, then I would like respond it. Yeah, but like as a remote freelancer, I think replying the email is like I think it's one of the important things. So I try to be really quick and better about that.
No, that's really good. You definitely have the producer mindset because that's how I operate as well. I also read that like if you can do something in like 2 minutes or 5 minutes or less, then to go ahead and knock it out real quick, just to get it off your plate. I know that I am really cognizant about trying to have no emails in my inbox. Like I want to make sure that that's like cleared out because anything that's sitting there is like I haven't responded to it. It stresses me out.
Yeah, that's kind of like me.
That's really great. That's really great. Well, we have a little bit of time left. I know we have a handful of folks listening, so I want to give anyone the opportunity if they want to raise their hand and have a question for Sofie, they're welcome to ask it. And while anyone's thinking if they have a question, I can ask you a couple more. So one question I've been asking everyone who's been on the podcast. Would you rather fight one large duck or 100 smaller horses?
uh,
That's a tough question.
I think one.
Just one? I think that makes sense because you can avoid it easily or easy,
Yeah.
hopefully.
What about you?
Oh, that's a good question. Would I rather fight 100 duck-sized horses or one horse-sized duck? I think I might go for the giant duck because I'm pretty fast. People don't know this, but I'm pretty fast, so I feel like I could like get out of that situation. I would just have to avoid one duck. But with horses, horses are pretty strong, even if they're pretty small. So I think I would go that one.
That's a good point.
All right. So looking ahead to the future, what is the future for Sofie look like? Like if we're projecting ahead, like what's your dream? Are you going to keep doing freelance? Do you see yourself landing another full-time job? Are you going to start your own business? Sofie International Design. What's it going to be?
At the moment, I don't have any plans, For me right now, it's just like just like just living my life daily. Like we have coronas and everything, so
Right.
it's really hard to anticipate. So for me, it's just like living my life daily basis at the moment. But hopefully, I could figure it out what I would like to do in the future. But so far, freelancing's been really great. So
Awesome. Well, I'm so glad to hear that things have been going so well. And I know I really appreciate you coming on our Mograph lunch to talk to all our listeners about, your freelance work, how you got into it, and what's kind of going on in your life. So we can wrap it up here unless anyone has any other questions. As a quick reminder, Mograph lunch is a weekly occurrence. So this happens every week at 1 o'clock Eastern time where we talk about news, portfolio projects, general industry topics, and then we also get to interview great freelancers like Sofie and then other studio owners as well. If anyone has someone they'd like to interview, definitely shoot us a message, on Instagram or on Twitter. My handle is @mac_motion, or you can reach out to us at _studio. And then also a quick reminder, this will be a shameless plug, but the Dash Bash tickets are going to be going on sale next Friday. Again, that's an event that's going to be here in Raleigh, North Carolina, September 23rd and 24th of this year, celebrating the motion design industry. And I know all of us, particularly after just such a hard year of being isolated, are all looking forward to seeing some of our friends again in person. So that should be a lot of fun. Well, thank you all so much for joining. And Sofie, thanks again so much for hanging out with me. I really enjoyed it.
yeah, totally. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. Take care, everyone. Bye.